Hi guys, and welcome to my first episode of Stripper Sunday! So Stripper Sunday has come about after participating in the panel discussion at the Pole World Festival about the appropriation of stripping in the pole industry, and just there being so many questions, so many people really genuinely interested in wanting to be respectful to stripping and knowing about the job. And I really get it, because when something's outside our scope of our life experiences, our lived experience, it's so natural to be fascinated by that. And most people are never going to know what it's like to sit in the stripper's dressing room, to work the floor, to have those experiences. And especially I worked the job for 10 years. I worked in all different clubs in all different cities around the UK. So I've had a really varied and multifaceted experience of the job. And especially as stripping's become really popularised as part of pole culture. The first thing that I wanted to do with these videos was, so much of the stripper culture that we see within the pole industry is really American centric. So there are people who have this idea of what stripping is, and they see those images from Hustlers and all the American films of tip rails and twerk and make it rain, woo, choo 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 choo, and it's nah, that's not what we do over here. Because I'd be really nice for people who are talking about UK stripping to actually have a good idea of what UK stripping scene involves. And also, I have lots of people who tell me things about how UK stripping is, that you sort of, maybe they've been to one strip club in their lives, and it's always said with such confidence, well, the girls don't even use the poles, that they're just trying to sell dances. And it's true for some clubs, not for others. And then it's not even about doing lap dances, girls are selling champagne rooms, sit downs, and it's again, maybe for some, maybe not for others. And then people say how it works is the girls pay a fee, and it's not necessarily, that's not always how it works. So I think because there's just so much being put out there that's maybe true, not true, some of it's kind of true, I just wanted to show the diversity of the UK stripping scene. Look, all the clubs are different, what you're expected to wear is different, some have dress codes, some work on commission, some work on dances, some work on champagne rooms. So I just thought, yeah, let's sit down and put that forward. So one reason is to really just share, because people are interested. Oh, what's on my face? I've wanted to do something like this for a while, and it just felt a bit awkward sitting at a camera being this is what Angels was like in Liverpool. It just felt really weird and inorganic. So I was you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna sit and do my hair, do my makeup, put an outfit on, and produce the look that I would have worn in that particular club. So today we're talking about Angels in Liverpool that I worked in 2004, 2005. So the look I'm going to be producing is from Angels, Misty and Angels, 2004, 2005. So yeah, to give everyone the visual images. So every club that I talk about, I'm going to produce a look that I would have worn in that club, in the same way that all different companies will have their own brand. Clubs definitely work the same way as well. Some not so much, and there'll be clubs that I'll be this is just what I wore because that's what I liked. Everyone looked different. But in some clubs there's definitely sort of an aesthetic. Some want you to keep to that aesthetic very strictly, but yeah, so I thought let's do it visually, and also it gives me something to do if I'm doing my face and fiddling, and yeah, then it means that I don't feel quite as irks. But you know what, the other reason I really want to do these videos is because it's always baffled me how people have such a problem with what other people do with their flesh prisons. I personally have never got it. Your body is just skin, it's just something that you have, that you exist in. The whole modesty culture, I've never got. I don't get it. I don't understand how we think that we can define people as to their morality, as to their character, by how much skin they have on show. How much of my flesh prison am I showing to the world? And I think anyone who's worked in any aspect of the sex industry has definitely had those odd incidences working the job that's made them dislike the job or not want to work the job or hate the job, just as I'm sure anyone who's worked in retail or serving has had those moments where they're like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Where they felt really like degraded. But that's all that anyone really wants to talk about when it comes to like the sex industry or sexual entertainment industry, is like, oh my god, like, is it so degrading? Like, you know, do people like really treat you like shit, and doesn't it make you feel bad doing that job? And all that bollocks. And don't get me wrong, and you know, we talk a lot about the inherent risks that come with the sex industry, but as I've started talking about in some of my True Crime Tuesday videos that have come as a branch off from this because of all the different stuff I've ended up scripting and talking about and thinking about, the problem for me and what really damaged me from working as a stripper was never the actual job itself. It wasn't the way the clubs treated me. It wasn't the way the customers treated me. It wasn't that I personally had this problem with taking my clothes off. I don't give a fuck. Like, you want to see my boobs? I don't understand. I don't know. Unless we apply meaning to something, it doesn't mean anything. Modesty is a social construct, like everything else. Gender roles and norms are social constructs. Modesty is a social construct. So it was the way other people treated me, it was the way society treated me that really fucked me up from doing stripping, okay? I mean, I'm doing a talk this Friday about like the online hatred towards OnlyFans again, which has come as a stem from thinking about the stuff for these videos. But if you're online and you see the way people talk about anyone who is involved in the sex industry, like, they just absolutely like lambast them. The hate, the vitriol, it's just incredible. Basically, the assumption is that if you do anything that's slightly sexualized as a woman, if you do pole as a hobby and you do the sexy pole, or if you've worked as a stripper or a sex worker, then instantly your ability to have good judgment is gone. You have no integrity. You don't have the integrity to know what's decent and what's proper and what's appropriate and what isn't. And it is this whole idea I've had from ex-boyfriends, I've had it from ex-managers, where as soon as they find out what you've done previously as a job, suddenly you like can't be trusted, you're immoral, you're more likely to cheat. I've had an ex turn to me and say, my friends saw a photo of you and said you're the kind of girl that's gonna cheat. How the fucking... Well done there, Mystic Meg, having the powers to look at someone's photos and be able to draw from their character. Stripping is what gave me the ability to work myself out of a really shit position. And that's what we're told to do. You're told to graft, aren't you? We're told these rags to riches stories. We're told to graft. But then when you do, it's like, but you weren't supposed to do it like that. And if you're a woman that's dared to go, fuck you, you've sexualized me for years, I'm gonna profit off this and capitalize off it, and I'm gonna make money in a way that suits me, working nights, being able to dress up and do my makeup and drink champagne and then be awake in the day to study and be there for my son. It was brilliant for me. It suited me really well. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better suited job for my circumstances. So the other reason for these videos, I know I've waited on a bit and this intro seems long, but the other reason for these videos is that I want to normalise talking about stripping and really put it out there that, like, if you meet someone who's worked as a stripper, the likelihood is they're not someone who is just gonna, at any inappropriate moment, drop the keks and show you their fanny. Like, we know what's the appropriate circumstances for being sexy and what isn't, and most of us do not want to be sexy outside the work environment. Like, you start dating a lad and you can see that they think like, oh yeah, you used to be a stripper, I bet you're dirty, aren't you? I bet you're a dirty girl, I bet you're wild, you aren't you? I bet you're fucking crazy, I bet you do all sorts of, yeah. And like, in reality, I'm sat here with my cats and a cup of tea, like it's a performative, it's a performance, it's a fucking job. It's like, do you think that every person who's nice to you in customer service really enjoys, like, they're really that passionate about car insurance? No one's that passionate about car insurance. They're passionate about commission. We're all passionate about making money. You know, talking about everything being a social construct, we created a capitalist society. We've literally created a society where if you don't have money, you can't eat, you can't stay warm, you can't have a roof over your head. We invented this. This is all a fucking social construct. If I think about this too much, I swear it drives me insane. We make these mad rules that you have to have money to live, so you need to earn your money. But if you earn your money that way, you're a peasant. And if you earn your money that way, you're a slut. And if you earn your money that way, you're a criminal. And it's like, people who aren't born into privilege see these things that we're told we need to have and we're supposed to have, and that you're only important if you have. But they've got no means of getting them. I am not surprised, as someone who worked in criminal justice, I am not surprised how many lads we see committing crimes over and over again, like with high recidivism rates, especially for theft, because they have no means of getting this shit that they're told that they need to have to matter, to have status, to be important. So yeah, I definitely want to break down these ideas that people have that, like, all strippers are just like mad, crazy party animals who are just stripping because they're incapable of doing anything else or knowing when's appropriate to be sexual and when isn't, so that we're all like sex hungry wild beasts or whatever fucking bullshit people believe. I would love to see a world where it's just normalised, like someone's worked as a stripper, cool, all right then, whatever. You know, because I think even online now, you see the opposite. I was on like a Facebook group and some woman like put this comment, and I get that it was the opposite and I'm not complaining, but she was like, strippers are wonderful, hard-working, talented people. And I was a bit like, some are, but I've also met strippers who like, weren't really very good at the job. They just sort of sat at the end of the bar and got pissed and fell off the bar stool. There was one girl in a club I worked in who used to burp in the guys' faces and walk on her hands around the club. Like, it's like any other job. If you work in accountancy, there'll be someone who's dead good at the job and gets all their work done on time, and there'll be some lazy twat who doesn't want to have to do their work and wants to pass it on to someone else. And so as much as like I get people trying to, you know, defend sex workers and are trying to like support sex workers, I also think going the other way and like turning us into some sort of mad pixie dream girl unicorns doesn't help either. Like, we're just people earning money. So Angels is not only the longest standing strip club in Liverpool, I believe it's one of the longest standing clubs in the whole of the UK. And I also believe that Spearmint Rhino was loosely based on Angels. I remember having this conversation with John, who's the owner of Angels, that the people from, it was either Stringfellows or Spearmint, came and spoke to him about Angels and how he ran the club before they opened up. I think maybe it was Stringfellows. I know it was one or other. Oh, do you know what? When you get to a certain age, your memory starts to like do away with you. So when I worked in Angels, 2005, Angels was a very much a dance-based club. So when you went into Angels, it was a big open plan club. There was a stage that stuck out with one pole on it, and there were lots of like booths around. So they were like these, they were almost like barbershop colours, some of them, like maroon and white, like leather booths that were in like horseshoe shapes all around the room. There were loads of them. The reason the club was all over plan was because you literally gave the table dancers, the lap dancers, where the guys were sat having their drink. So there was room for you to have a dancer stood in front of you and to give you your dance. I like the fact that, as I said, dance, I did a little dance there. That's exactly how I lap dance people. Yeah, you'd give them the dance where they sat. So It was a dance-based club. So when you hear this like, oh well, dance in the UK make money off champagne rooms, absolutely not necessarily. Down in London for sure, and we're going to talk about different London clubs over the coming weeks, but in Liverpool in the early 2000s had not got that like champagne room sit down culture yet, and Angels did not need it. It was a fiver a dance, okay? A fiver. I don't think it still is now. I'm very doubtful it'd still be a fiver a dance, but it was a fiver a dance. So how it worked basically was the music system, the PA system where the songs were played, each song was cut to exactly 3 minutes. So the whole night when music was playing, there would be like a 20-30 second gap between each song. So a song would play for exactly 3 minutes, then it would go silent. And there'd be like a 20-30 second gap, and then the next song would start and play for exactly 3 minutes. And you would spend the whole night literally going around dancing for every 3 minutes. So I'd do my dance, and I'd be dancing for someone, and the song would stop. And you would literally close back on, look, and people would like have their dance dollars in the air, waving them like, yeah, me. And the girls would do it as fast as lightning, go from one to the next person. The next song would start and you'd straight away start again. On a busy night, you could do this consistently for hours on end. So Angels had a rule that you didn't take your underwear past your knees, okay? And you could only have your underwear down for the last 30 seconds of the song. So it was quite a dark club. Everyone was sat in open plan. You weren't allowed to bend over, you weren't allowed to raise your legs up. You were literally seeing as much as you'd see on a Barbie doll in the dark. So it was very much more about like the titillation experience. It wasn't about like, show us your fanny. And because of the nature of how the club ran, because you had such a short space of time to finish one dance and move on to the next one, you wouldn't even completely take your clothes off. Most of us chose outfits and adapted to outfits where literally you could pull them down, bikinis that you'd open, because you didn't want to be faffing round. So like when I see all like the pole outfits now that people wear where there's loads of like straps and all of that stuff, it does make me chuckle a bit, because you just would not be wearing that stuff. Like it's the last thing you'd be wearing to dancing. Like if you're trying to get your kit off and on as quickly as possible to make the most money you can in the shortest amount of time, you don't want no fastenings, you don't want straps that you're getting tangled up in. It's like, get that shit on, get that shit off. Just as a disclaimer, if I mention any dancers' names while I'm talking about these various clubs, I have changed their names. Even if they were stage names, I've just changed the names anyway to a completely made up one. I don't want to be like risking outing anyone, because some of them I'm not sure it was their stage name or not. Yeah, then I'm changing names. I'm just trying to protect people's identities. So it may seem a bit mad to a lot of people talking about a club that was only £5 a dance and didn't do champagne rooms, and you know, you had to go around and dance. You made your money. And Angels is one of the hardest clubs to get into in Liverpool as a dancer. They do not just take anyone on. People don't leave. People who'd worked there for a long time stayed. Working in Angels was quite a prestigious thing. They did not let anyone in to work there. And people were desperate to get in there. If you fucked up and got sacked, you didn't get back in. And Angels has a second club, Angels VIP. And so like I left Angels to move back to London. Fucking big mistake. Anyway, different story. We'll get to that one another day. You'll get Misty's life stories in this as well. Like my life's been a fucking mess, guys. Like just, it's messy. Pull up some tea. Like you're going to love it. You're going to love it. But yeah, and when I moved back, I wanted to go back and work at Angels and I wasn't allowed to because I'd left. So like it was a thing of like, you left. You go work in the B Squad club. Yeah, drama, strip club drama. So when you start, there were 2 changing rooms. There was a changing room for sort of new girls, but there was a second dressing room that was for like the A-team girls, the girls who'd been there for the longest. And as I say, some of them had been there for years. There was one girl, I'm going to call her Sarah, and she was just so funny. She was tiny as well. Like, I'm small. If you've ever met me IRL, I am tiny. I'm like 5'1". I'm like a size 4 because I'm dead petite. I'm a tiny person. And Sarah made me look big. She was tiny, like maybe 4'10" or something. She was really small, but she had massive fake boobs. So like this tiny girl with these enormous fake boobs, and she was so funny and so friendly. And you know, she was like head girl. She had been there forever. Sarah would lead the pole shows. So she was like head girl, she was like rep of Angels, and we had to do pole shows through the night. So the club was called Angels, and so every night, I remember we did it at midnight, and I'm trying to remember what the frequency was during the night. I know we did it some nights a few times. I just remember the standard being it was at midnight, but the stage was like a carpeted stage that had one pole on it, right? And the stage was actually predominantly used for stag groups and stag shows. So you'd get the stag up on the stage, and there'd be like 4 of you, and you'd just terrorise this poor dude. Like, you'd whip him with a belt and like do all sorts of mad shit to him. So I think it was all taken out our pent up aggression against shitty men, to be honest. But poor dudes, like, and their mates would pay for them to just get traumatised, and they'd love it. But at midnight, you'd see the song would finish from when you've been doing a dance for someone, and when you had that gap of 30-second silence, it would stay silent, and the strobe light on the stage would go off, and you'd have that moment of like, oh shit. And we'd all have to line up. All the girls who were working that night would have to line up at the side of the stage, right? And Sarah would always start, and the song Robbie Williams' Angels would play, and you'd hear it, dun dun dun, Sarah Wayne. And for the opening, for the first verse and chorus, I think it was, Sarah, it was always Sarah. And if Sarah wasn't in, I mean, Sarah was always in, but if she wasn't in, there were certain other girls that were like allowed to open the stage show, and it was very much a like, you're allowed to or you're not. Just not everyone could do the solo. And it was very much like a hierarchy in that respect. It wasn't unfriendly. Don't get me wrong as I'm saying this. It wasn't mean girls. It wasn't unfriendly. But it just was like a bit like you worked your way up the ladder in Angels. So she would do a solo for the first part. One by one, the rest of the girls would come onto the stage and do a little something and then walk off, a bit like a catwalk, like a pole dance catwalk. And when you think about it now, it's a little bit cringe, like, you know, it's a bit like, hey, Miss USA pageant, like a bit cattle markety, like praising us all across the stage. It sounds really cringe now to talk about it, but at the time this was quite a unique thing that Angels did, and it was like seen as a showcase of the girls. And it was good, because then when you walked across the stage, if you'd been busy all night and you'd been, you know, dancing with other people, it was a chance for like people to then see you and be like, oh, she's nice. And I was quite good on the pole, so I quite liked it, because I could just throw out a nice little fancy trick. So if you were quite good on the pole and you liked using the pole, you could choose to do a pole show to, you know, entertain everybody, and also obviously to sell yourself for dancers. And most people didn't have to, because it wasn't difficult to make money in Angels. It was very easy. It was always busy. And people were always having dances. I think with them being a £5 a dance, people were more inclined to spend their money, whereas if it's like 20 quid a dance, people hold on to their money like, can't have that many. Whereas you can have 8 dancers for the price of 2 when they're a £5. So people were throwing the tokens round. And we had this proper skinny pole. It was like a 38 spinning pole. And she was awesome. The people who did pole at that time, what they were doing was awesome for where we were in terms of pole, 2004, 2005. You know, people doing like Superman and knee holds and stuff like that. Like it was quite advanced for the time. And things like Hello Boys spin, you know, where you go up and hold yourself with your legs open. Like I can remember at the time being like, wow, Like, I think the most advanced thing I could do at that point was like a hip hold, and when I did that, people were like, whoa, you're holding on with no arms or legs, like, wow. And you know, you look at pole now and it's like, fucking hell, how times change, right? So I did used to do pole shows, and there was a few people that did. There was a girl who worked, right, and her name was, I'm gonna call her Kate, but she was just known as Cowboy Hat Kate because she wore a cowboy hat every single night. She wore the same outfit every single night, like this neon cowboy bikini. So it was like a bikini with frills on, and then she had almost like little holsters, and she would wear boots. She was one of the few people wearing boots at that point. Like, pole boots were really rare. Everyone wore shoes, but boots were rare. But she had boots, and I can remember being like, where did you get those boots from? And she didn't really speak. Cowboy Hat Kate didn't really speak. And she just sort of smiled and was like, and that was it. If you're a modern poler, right, you cannot imagine a world where you couldn't just go online and have this vast array of pole shoes and boots at your disposal. Like, there wasn't online, guys. I'm talking 2005 here, 2004. Online wasn't really a thing yet. Like, certainly not online shopping. I can't remember at that point ever shopping online. You still had to go to shops and find stuff. Like, this idea, if you had turned to baby stripper Misty and been like, this is the future, look at all these pleasers and hella heels. Don't buy pleasers anymore personally because of pole fitness shoe gate. That's my choice. Just gonna throw that out there. But if you showed baby stripper Misty like the choice of shoes there is now and how easy they are to access, I'd have just been like mind blown, mate, mind blown. So to imagine like a world where you'd be asking people, where did you get that? And they wouldn't tell you, like, it seems mad, doesn't it, right? So it was, yeah. But she wore, like, do you remember the old 90s, like, rave boot covers? Hold on, I'm just going to do my eyebrows because this is hard. Sorry, guys, I just did my eyebrows and liquid eyeliner off camera because it was just going to end up being a mess, and I poked myself in the eye and everything. So, yeah, so do you remember those boot covers from, like, raving in the 90s that would be, like, start under the knee and were kind of fluffy? Well, Cowboy Hat Kate used to wear boot covers like that, but they were like cowboy ones, so they had tassels down, and she had like little arm pieces and everything that were tassels. So she had this like whole cowgirl themed outfit, and this chick was one of the top earners from dancing I have ever seen. Like, this chick had the most banging body. She didn't speak. She just never spoke. And she just used to go around doing dance after dance after dance, and she would make an absolute fortune. Now, when I say it was a £5 dance and you used to be able to make money, like, you could easily make between £500 and £900 on a busy night, on a Friday, Saturday night. And on the races, so Liverpool, of course, we have entry races. We used to get rammed races and football, like Liverpool Football Club. Some of our biggest customers were Irish. The Irish who'd come over to Liverpool from Ireland, obviously. And they used to spend a fortune. So when footy season was on, my goodness, we used to make an absolute killing. But the races, when the races was on, the club would suddenly be opened up, and you realise there was a whole other section of club that you'd never even seen. Like, it was hardly ever open. It wasn't open all the time. There was this whole extra section of club that got opened up during the races. And we'd be rammed. We'd have people queuing to come in. I mean, on a typical Saturday night, like when we were full, you'd have groups of lads waiting outside, so that as one group of lads got up and left, there was another one coming in to replace them. So it was this solid turnover of customers. Now, you might have heard me mentioning before about people waving their dance dollars. The way the Angels worked was that you received your payment for dances and dance dollars. So the customers had to go to the bar and cash in their cash for these dance dollars. And the reason it was done this way was because Angels worked on commission. So you didn't pay a house fee to go in, but you paid commission on what you earned. And I remember it being like your first £50, you didn't pay anything. And then it went up obviously in increments of £5 because it was £5 for a dance. But you got to remember, this was 15 years ago. I know, I look young and beautiful. And I think you paid like £30 on 100. So like you took 70 per 100 you made. So basically, as the more money you made, like you paid more money basically for having work that night. But I personally really prefer this as a way of running a club, because it means that if you have a shit night and there's not many customers in, you know, during the off seasons where there was no football, then it could get a little bit quieter. But I personally think no dancer should ever go home with less money than they came in with. And it definitely did happen in other clubs that I worked in. Clubs were like Stringfellows, where you're expected to stump up £85 as you walk through the door, and no matter what happens that night, you've paid that's gone. I don't think it's right. I don't think that's right at all. I don't think you should ever be having girls walk out having paid to come to work. So I think this system, where the more you earn, the more you pay, it works well. And if you're a consistent high earner, if you're in this club renting your space and you're doing really well, you know, you don't mind giving a little bit more. It's the way taxation should work, isn't it? If you're earning billions, you don't mind putting a little bit more back into the economy to cover those who haven't had your fortune. So you were paid entirely in these little dance dollars, and that way at the end of the night you had a little box. So there was this wooden box that had a little mini slots in it, you know, so that this big box had lots of little compartments. That's the word I'm looking for. Each one had a different name on, so you'd have your own compartment with your name on, and you'd collect so many of your dance dollars while you were going around dancing. So while you were going around doing your dances, most of us would wear stockings, because Angels wasn't really a club where you carried a bag around with you. You weren't allowed to drink alcohol in Angels. That was a big thing. Like, it was a serious money-making club. You work in some clubs and it's like people are there to party. Angels was a money club. It was a business. Everyone was there to make money. Back in these days, you could still smoke in clubs as well. So some of the clubs I'll be talking about the etiquette for like alcohol and cigarettes. I'm trying to remember what the smoking rules were in Angels, because I'm damn sure we weren't allowed to walk around and smoke. We had like ashtrays in the change. Can you imagine that now? Ashtrays in the changing room. So you could sit and have a cig in the changing room, but I'm pretty sure you were supposed to go off and away to smoke. But like, you were just making your money. You were just going around dancing. So most of us wouldn't carry bags, because what's the point? We didn't have mobile phones really back then. Imagine that people didn't have phones. Like, so you didn't really have, I can't remember ever carrying a bag. And you got dollars as well. So because these dollars were like laminated and plasticky, you wouldn't wear a garter really for them, because they were difficult, not like money, they were difficult to keep round a garter and to fold. So most of us used to wear hold-ups or stockings, so you could shove all your dance dollars down your stockings. And I'm not kidding, sometimes I would go to my box to like empty out all my dance dollars to go back on the floor, and I would be digging all the way down to my ankles. Like, these dance dollars were just all the way down my legs inside my stockings. Like, it was absolutely mental. I still have some of my shitty old Laval, like white and blue. This is what we used to use for highlighter, man. I mean, talking about not being able to get stripper shoes, like, there was no internet. If you wanted decent makeup, I just started my makeup artistry training in 2004, 2005. You'd have to go to like the Mac store in Soho. You'd save up your money and do a trip to like Harvey Nichols or Selfridges or the Mac store in Soho, because you couldn't. So like for going to work in Liverpool, everything, I'd go to St John's Market for everything. So that's where, I know a couple of the girls were buzzing from Liverpool when I talked about this, but there was one shop in the market, in St John's Market in Liverpool, that we'd all go to get our stripper shoes. But similarly, like, you'd be getting your makeup from there. We weren't wearing, like, it's not like now, if you went into a strip club now, I'm damn sure everyone would be opening up their makeup bags and having, like, oh, this really expensive makeup, like all the Jeffree Star and Kat Von D and NARS and all that shit. Like, back then it was like what you could get hold of. The world was just a totally different place, man. Like, it was a totally different entity. But I don't think I'd actually put this on my eyes because I do not know how old this is. I'm guessing it's maybe like 10 years old. I found it in an old makeup bag and was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But yeah, I might put some on my cheeks maybe, just to show you like the travesty that used to be doing our makeup for work and what we had to make do with. So there was a thing in Angels while I was there, right? When I started, it was the first time I met the owner, John, and he like was walking up the stairs, and he was like, oh, you're new? And I was like, yeah, and chatting to him, and he was like, oh, you'll do all right. And he looked me up and down, and he was like, do something with your hair, get a bit of hair and tan up a bit. I mean, now it's mad. If you think about it, in a job now, if someone told you to like sort yourself out, you'd be fuming. But he was like, tan up a bit, get some hair, you'll do all right. So back then, it wasn't like now. You could not just go and get like a hair extensions for like 100 quid or buy them off the internet and clip them in. If you wanted hair extensions, you were talking like £500. So it was like, there was great lengths and there was raccoon. I think I had great lengths ones done. But they were all the individual ones that took hours to put into your hair, but it just wasn't common. It was not common. Not like now when you go to town, everyone's got hair extensions. The only people that had them were like actresses and pop stars, strippers. And back then as well, tanning shops, we all went on the sunbeds all the time, to the point where at one point in the club, everyone had this skin infection where when you have a tan and it's got all white dots where you've got no pigments in your skin, and you get it from sunbeds. And because everyone went on the sunbeds and someone had obviously picked this bacterial infection up off the sunbeds and then was sitting on the leather couches that were in the booths, every time another girl then sat down, they picked this up. And at one point we all looked like fucking reverse cheaters, like with these white spots on us, and we all had to shampoo ourselves in like this anti-dandruff shampoo to get rid of it. Fucking but all of us, it was like, there was a phrase in the club that was get a little help from the kelp, because everyone was on sea kelp vitamins because someone had told us it'd make our hair grow. So all of us were knocking back these sea kelp vitamins, and then if someone went and got hair extensions, it was like, did you get a bit of help from the kelp? But that's what we were doing. Like, I had them down to my waist. Like, I'm only fucking 5'1". I'm about this big. I was like Shakira with hair like this. Like, thinking I was the big fucking dog's bollocks. But yeah, 2004, 2005, you know, it was approaching the last years of like stripping being a job that you could really consistently make a lot of money from doing. And the way stripping was considered was so different as well. The biggest culture change that we saw was mobile phones. When the internet on mobile phones became commonplace, before you had porn just being able to be accessed in someone's hand, in the palm of their hand, you know, and easily online. Like, when I were a kid growing up, we had like a woods at the end of our road. We lived in a cul-de-sac with like a brook opposite with a cow field, and then like at the end of the cul-de-sac there was like a copse, so a little woods. And when you went in there, there'd be places where you'd find porn. And it was like the done thing was that lads would rip out pages of porn magazines. And they'd obviously stolen it from like their dad or their older brother or their uncle. Someone who, if they discovered a ripped out porn page from their magazine, wasn't going to go and like grasp, because they probably had it hidden as well. But anyone who was a kid in the 80s and 90s will tell you that it was a thing that you used to find porn, ripped out pages of porn magazines hidden in all sorts of places. Like, commonly, lads would put them in plastic bags and they put them underneath bushes and in little hidey places, you know, in a little waterproof, you know, cover in a little plastic bag so that the elements wouldn't get to it. And then a little group of them would get together in the woods. I don't know what they were in the woods together and look at this pool. But it was the only time they'd seen a naked woman. So if you think that that was the culture and the way the world was, you know, 80s, 90s, going into the 2000s, when I started stripping, a lot of the lads that came in would have never seen a naked woman before, or even the older fellas, they'd never seen a naked woman apart from their wives. And potentially their wife might be, you know, the kinds of woman who doesn't like to have sex with the lights on. You know, there are people who are very insecure about their bodies. Also, as we were talking before, women who've been indoctrinated into this like modesty culture where they've been made to feel shame about their bodies and about sex, so they don't feel confident, or they see these women in the magazines with the perfect bodies and they look at themselves and they don't feel sexy. That's why Sexy Pole is so important, that we're breaking down these barriers. You know, strip clubs, really important, because women could come in and see that the women who were dancing naked for the fellas, you know, it wasn't all what you'd imagine, like Pamela Anderson, like Barbie dolls. There was a real diversity of women and bodies. Like, when you go in, it's just like, we're all just fucking normal women. Like, we're all just normal. And there's a real diversity of age, of body types. Cowboy Hat Kate that I was talking about. Oh, I didn't finish talking about Cowboy Hat Kate, sorry. I'm not very neurotypical, as you can probably tell, so I'm going to go off on tangents here. Cowboy Hat Kate, she was not a young girl. She looked like an older Britney Spears, probably what Britney looks like now, kind of thing. You know, I'd say she was late 30s, early 40s. She didn't fucking speak. But she definitely wasn't like what you'd be thinking of as like a young Pamela Anderson, Cameron Diaz type. She made fucking bank. I've never seen a woman make money from dances like she did. But she used to do stage shows. That's what I was talking about. So some of us did stage shows. I did, because I was pretty good at poles. So if, you know, I was having a bit of a quieter night, I'd get on and do a stage show just because I loved it, to be honest. I chose to do that. So when people are saying like, no UK strippers choose to use the pole, it's like, no, that's not true. That's not true at all. Like, I'm sure in some clubs there's a bit of a culture where they choose not to. We did in Angels. Those of us that liked the stage would choose to do stage shows. We'd ask to go on. And we'd have our CDs that we'd put behind the bar with our song that we like to dance to. You'd hand the DJ your CD. Imagine that. Remember them days, handing a CD over. I can remember that in pole comps, when you used to bring your CD with your music on to the pole comp. If you're like a new poler from in the last few years, like, mate, the world has changed. I sound like one of them old people, don't I? Like, back in my day. But it has, it's just changed so much. So yeah, she would do stage shows, and she was so like creative, the shit she did. So she, because we had these strobe lights and there was like UV light in Angels, she got, have you ever been to like Blackpool Illuminations, or like to market stores or events around like bonfire night? And they have the stuff that goes, and it's got lights and sound. She had these like handheld balls that like lit up all different colours. They'd span like this. And I can remember getting on stage and doing a routine to like, bang, on the wall, bang, booty of cars, shiny disco balls. Sorry. And she did this stage dance with these spinning coloured light up handheld disco balls, and it was fucking brilliant. And because it was all dark with the strobes, as she was like doing her thing with like a disco balls, it just looked dead cool, it looked dead trippy. And so she, you know, super creative. Like, she was fucking cool. She was fucking cool. I loved being an Angels girl. It was one of those clubs where the staff were really on our side. I can remember one night a girl called, let's call her Emma, working, and she was absolutely stunning. And it was quiet at this point. It must have been near the end of the night, you know, like coming up to like early hours of the morning. There weren't many customers left in, and she was doing a dance for this fella. And the next thing, I just heard her like yell, like something like, "You dirty bastard!" First of all, she picked up his drink, I think, and launched it at him. And then she obviously again, and picked up the whole fucking table and launched it at this fella. So he had like a drink bounce off him, and then he had the whole table bounce off him. was like, she was a quiet, like really nice, dignified, quiet girl. So I was proper like, whoa. And the guy had like, as she was dancing, she turned around and been wiggling her bum, and he reached his whole hand forwards and like groped her between the legs. But he'd proper like, yeah, he'd proper crossed the boundaries. And she fucking launched a table at him, and good on her, absolutely fucking good on her. But in a lot of clubs, if you'd done that in some of the London clubs, if you did something like that in Stringfellows, you'd lose your job, because the whole thing was about decorum. I'll talk about Stringfellows next week, because that was an interesting club. But a lot of clubs wouldn't have backed you for defending yourself like that. And the bouncers just instantly chucked him out, and like nobody even criticised her. It was a case of like, well, yeah, good on you, it's what he deserves. But I do definitely wish I'd been less of a fool about my money when I was working them good days in stripping, man. Like, some girls were saving money and putting together property portfolios and buying up houses, and now they are really successful and have like a string of properties that they invested in, whereas I was just a muppet who was like, champagne, yay! I'm gonna try this Laval rolling out. Oh wow, look at that shit, man. I used to wear this rolled all over my face. Like, really? It's like putting deodorant around my eyes. Do you know what? I actually quite fucking like this as a highlighter once it's blended in. I actually don't mind it. Oh man. It just keeps on spreading. Okay, so I'm going to go and do my last few bits into transforming into my angel's incarnation. I'm going to come back to you instantaneously having transformed. So yeah, this is absolutely how I would have looked back in 05 to work in angels. I think because I was so young working in angels, for me like the black smoky eye look was so synonymous with sexy, so it was that way of like making myself look a little bit more grown up, a bit older. And I think the little diamond earrings as well, so it was like, you know, going for the grown up glamour look. The lip liner with lip gloss, that was the thing, and it was I need to do the thing that the makeup vloggers do, the sexy mother pucker lip gloss. So like, I can feel it stinging now. It like plumps your lips up, so you just like throughout the night like keep applying it like meh, 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 meh. So your lips would be like tingling, and you'd be working around like this, like with your mouth on fire, but then just with the lip line drawn on, just the lip line drawn on around, so that if any people will remember this look, it was a very like nerdies look. To be fair, it's not an easy look to do. Like, my eyes have taken me a while to do today, because a really good black smoky eye look is not easy to do. You have to make sure that it's very even, it's very symmetrical, there's lots of blending, and you get lots of fall off even from having set it and putting the eyes on first. You can see you get that fall down. So, you know, after wearing this in the club for a good few hours and dancing, you would end up with the slight panda eye going on, it coming down, and then yeah, like the pink blusher and the like blue highlighter, almost creating that baked look. That was, and the skinny eyebrows, like with no blending, just drawn on the face. I mean, that was a look. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm from that era, 90s, early 2000s, where it was the thin eyebrow was the thing that was in. And then the Scouse brow came in, where we just fucking drew them on massive. When the trend came in of like natural big eyebrows, I'm sure there were many others like me who were teenagers in the 90s and early 2000s who, when it was like big natural brows in fashion, we were just like, fuck you. I actually can't grow my eyebrows back now. They don't grow back. I overplucked them so much in the 90s, early 2000s, because that was the look. I've got friends who used to full on shave their eyebrows off to draw them back on. Like, mine have been plucked so much that even if I try and grow them back, I just get a bit down here, like some smattering of hairs down here, but where that arch is, like that thin arch, they don't grow back into there. So it's not like I could grow a natural brow back. They're gone. They're gone. They left home. They're never coming back. And, okay, the hair. So I'm not sure whether this was a Scouse thing, where this came from, but I have questions. We used to wear our hair like this. This is absolutely how I would have worn my hair and makeup. Like, it's fucking S Club 7, isn't it? It's S Club 7. This is how I would have looked working. Where the fuck? Who decided this hairstyle was a good idea? So you would just take random sections of your straightened hair and run it through a curling tong and lay it on top. That was that. This was the hair. This is what... I have questions. Was this a Scouse thing? Were other people doing this? I remember this being an S Club 7 thing. Like, I'm sure someone come into the comments for me with this. Did you wear your hair like this? Were you victimized of the random ringlet trend of 2005? Like, I need to know if other people were wearing their hair like this, but this is absolutely how I would have looked. Yeah, the very simple lingerie, really easy to take up, take down, take off easily, didn't show too much. The hold-ups that you could put the dance dollars down that would hold the money, until you could put it into your little box. I know I've got a £5 here. Unfortunately, I don't still own any Angels dollars. I wish I did, but you know, prop work, I'm demoing for you. And that is my first video about angels. A little bit about, you know, my history as well, my motivations. There was a nice long intro there, I know. Probably bored some people probably fucked off. Went to have a cup of tea. That's all right, I forgive you, it's okay. Next week I'm talking about Stringfellows because it's just such a fucking iconic club. I'm so lucky to have worked there. And gosh, completely different look for Stringfellows. I can't wait to tell you about that. Very strict. I know I spoke a bit before about the expectations of Stringfellows and like the etiquette we had to follow. Super interesting, can't wait to tell you about that. I have really enjoyed doing this. It was so much fun. I really hope that I can, you know, maybe change a few people's misconceptions through these videos, either teach them about, you know, how the industry works in the UK, away from that American-centric imagery, or just people who have this idea about who strippers are as people, maybe. So thank you so much for joining me. I also am doing True Crime Tuesdays now, which I wasn't going to go down the true crime route, even though I've worked in the criminal justice system, just because I felt like there was enough out there already. But watching the Yorkshire Ripper documentary, especially about the way the sex workers were treated, I felt like I wanted to do something, but with a focus on the victims, on a focus on how law and policy was changed by ordinary people in the wake of some of these crimes, so that we can have conversations beyond the superficial level, like beyond just, there was this guy and he killed people and he did this stuff, oh my God. Because as much as it's really interesting hearing about the perpetrators and their psychology and their backgrounds and the crimes, I feel like they just get enough airtime. Like, I want to talk about why there wasn't particular law and policy in place to begin with, the underrepresentation of women within the criminal justice system, how the media and society and culture influence how victims are treated, how crimes are investigated. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, please like, subscribe, comment, make suggestions of what you'd like me to talk about, whether you want me to do maybe Q&As. Yeah, just hit me with it. So please stay safe, stay at home, wash your hands, watch out for COVID, and I will see you again soon. Thank you so much. Bye.